Evangeline. She is the Sarah Evangeline over on Instagram. I should have put the Jimmy Moore a long time ago, but I came up with Living Low Carb Man. But anyway,
That's so
but she's a breakthrough coach, you guys, and really does so many good things. Let me brag on you a little bit, Sarah, at the beginning. I was so attracted to your message because you speak truthfully. You come across very warm and kind. It's a beautiful thing what you do. But guys, she speaks to those of you who deal with fears, who deal with shame, who deal with mindset that goes blah, 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 all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're constantly putting out good messages, and I've shifted a lot of my work into this area as well. And so it's cool to see someone else doing this and doing it very well. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation. I love conversations like this. I think they're so important. And no matter how much you teach it, there's always more to learn, especially even just within this past week, just major shifts happening within myself. And I'm so excited. So I'm so happy to be talking with you. So thank you as well.
Yes. So let's back up. Let's learn a little more about who you are. Why are you a breakthrough coach? Did you have things happen in your life that you needed a breakthrough? I know the answer, but I want to hear from you.
Yes. I mean, I feel like there's been hundreds by now.
Yes.
It all started in childhood. And my mom brought me to several different counselors. And, you know, as being a child, they just wanted me to sit on the couch and express my emotions. But as a child, you don't know how to do that. So I think it was like the 7th counselor she brought me to. It was amazing. She had play, she had arts and crafts, and I all of a sudden gotten all these major breakthroughs because of the way that she was positioning the therapy. It was completely different. And I was getting in touch with who I was, asking for help, and seeing shifts in myself as a young child who was so afraid. And so from a very young age, I knew I wanted to help people like this. Now, our journey, which I'm sure you can attest to, doesn't always go the way you plan. So I don't learn the same as everyone else does. I struggled so much in school. I was the one who would be studying, not going out with my friends, because I knew I had a goal. I wanted to get into university so I could become a counselor. But I just did not have the marks. I worked my butt off. And many people tell me, you're not going to make it. You're not smart enough. And I defied the odds. I got my master's degree in counseling, but it was stressful. Like, I look back on my life with no regrets. I traveled the world. I did amazing different jobs while I did my degrees. But all of a sudden, when I finished my master's, ready to go into the world, right, and do what I wanted to do for so long, and then I just hit a breaking point in my life, because sometimes when we're in school to learn, we're learning for others. Yes. And it wasn't until I finished my master's, it was like I hit a breaking point. And I had done everything they had told me to do. I had done the university, had done all the jobs, had done everything on the list that they told me would give me my purpose. And then I felt like, holy shit, what am I going to do now? Even though I had the master's degree. So I ended up having a spiritual awakening and just really had to actually do a lot of hard work. Even though I had my master's to help other people, I took a year off to just go off social media. I did jobs not in that field. The therapist and the life coach at the time, they said I had a midlife crisis at 25. So relearned a lot, but it's beautiful because everything I went to school with, I still had that ingrained in me.
Yes.
I just had a completely different outlook on it. And so it kind of set the pace. I'm very thankful for it because it set the pace and I'm so much more grounded. And so that it started in childhood, it did, and it continues to grow me and challenge me. And I've pivoted a few times, and I'm just so excited for this journey, and it's an honor.
Can I make a comment on your story? Because you said that it was your mom, though, that said, speak your feelings. Is that right? Your mom was trying to get you to do that and you didn't know how to do it. So you went to a coach to help with that. I had the opposite experience. I had parents that were like, you don't say anything. You are to be seen but not heard. Don't express yourself. My dad was a very hard man. I later found out he was beat as a kid by an alcoholic father. I did not know that when I was a kid. And so he was just like, oh, suck it up. You can't express feelings. And so emotion was looked at as a bad thing, and it was kind of hammered into me. Thank God I didn't like stay hard. I actually did turn to feelings and did express, and then a lot of work later down the road, being vulnerable and all the things that you talk about in your work, which is why I love your work. But I had the opposite experience, and I think that's probably more typical of people's experiences, that they didn't have parents that loved them enough to have them express emotion. So kudos to your parents that saw that in you, Sarah, and said, hey, we want you to talk to us. We want you to express yourself because we know that's what's healthiest.
Yeah. Yeah. Expressing yourself is key there. And it is interesting because, you know, I was told express yourself, and I got a lot of help from that counselor. But in the world, when I was traumatized as a little girl, you internalize things through that lens of that trauma. So I had other messages from other people besides those good supportive people that emotions are bad. So I had these mixed messages. So I didn't know who I was because of those mixed messages.
Yes. Well, and we're told to express ourselves. But then when we do, by society, then when we do, society goes, oh, no, you can't express yourself that way.
Right. There's a certain way to express yourself. Yeah.
And that's so crazy to me. It's like, and we've lost it in today's society, especially with all that's happened in the last 2 years. Like everything about people being able to say and believe what's on their mind has been hijacked by, no, this is the only acceptable thing that you can say or believe. And if you don't say or believe this, we're going to make your life a living hell by silencing your voice, censoring you, whatever. It's just, the world's weird right now, Sarah.
The world is weird right now. And I think a huge breaking point for me was just accepting the fact that I was different. I was trying to fit into a mold that
Yes.
wasn't meant for me.
No.
And like Brene Brown talks about this a lot, where we have to belong. We can't be trying to fit in. It's an endless chase. And that's what I was doing. I was chasing after validation, chasing after acceptance. And I didn't know how to accept myself. And I joke, I actually did a post about this, how I did, I don't know, 2 generations of schooling and not one course taught me how to love myself. Like, it's the key thing. And it sounds cheesy, it sounds easy, but it's not. You have to unlearn, you have to decode, you have to then relearn. And it's a beautiful process, but it's also painful and takes a lot of hard work and commitment on yourself. And then you see the world completely different. And you realize, oh my gosh, like the person beside me, they're going to see the world differently than I am. And it's this, I think it's a beautiful journey, but it's also painful.
Well, and when you realize that the way you view yourself is not necessarily the way other people view you. And here was the mind blower for me. Everybody has their own view of who you are. And it may not be what your view of who you are is. It's their interpretation through their filter of all their experiences in their life of who you are. And so as much as you try to get people to like you and appreciate you, all the things to you, at the end of the day, they're going to see you as they see you, whether it's true or not. And that is so revelatory when you find out about that, because you kind of stop playing the game of trying to appease other people and you just live authentically in who you are. That shines through.
Yes, exactly. And it seems like the expression to speak your truth is very loud right now.
Yes.
And I've had even close friends, 2 or 3, say to me, well, when you speak your truth, you're robbing others of speaking theirs or of speaking mine. And I'm going, my heart breaks. And my heart breaks because that's the lie. That's the lie that we give into. You know, when someone else speaks their truth, we're just not used to it. We're not used to people speaking up. We're not used to people like having a different reaction than the status quo. Like when someone says something, even about COVID, I will say a different response of like, but there's hope, but there's light. And they go, oh, like, I'm not going to complain with someone about it, because we can't ever control the chaos around us, but we can control our inner world, and our inner world then dictates our external world. And I choose to see that. So then people go, oh, And then they're like, they either walk away because I'm not going to complain, or they go, oh, I've never thought about that. And we enter into a deep conversation, and I learn from them as well. So
it's so funny you bring that up, because right before we got on the air, literally like 5 minutes before, a friend of mine said, I'm having a rough day. This and this is happening. This and this, and it's so horrible. And I said, okay, that's one way to look at it. Reframe it. Are you still alive? Yes. Do you have breath to breathe? Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food to eat? Like, think about the things positive. I think sometimes, and this is where people have overwhelmed them, is they think about all the bad things and they totally exclude all the good things that are happening for them. And in the moment, the bad things can feel so intense. But when you remove yourself from the situation and you kind of go, well, wait a minute, my life is not as bad as my mind is swirling right now. It changes everything. And I said, I will call you after I'm done interviewing this expert on mindset and and breakthroughs. But listen, better yet, go watch it and listen, and you'll probably learn something. But it's amazing how many people go down that path, Sarah, where they let their mind rule the roost.
Yeah. And this is even some neuroscience I can bring in. I posted about this morning, how the past and the future, they don't actually exist. But so we're not actually suffering from the past or the future. But what we are suffering from are memories, our imagination.
Yes.
Unregulated emotions. So then it feels like, oh my gosh, the what if scenarios, the overwhelm of what's going to happen next come in. Yeah, exactly. You cannot suffer the past or the future, but we haven't been taught how to be in the now. I've had to teach myself how to be in the now, and it's a daily practice. Like, yeah. I just was like, I'm going to put some holy shit moments in, because
this is what I love about you, Sarah, is you put messages out there, and it may not be for someone in that moment, but it may be for someone like my friend right before I got on the air. That's exactly for that moment. And so it's what makes you so powerful in your work. It's why I adore everything that you do. And you do such a great job. I have to tell people, go follow her again, the Sarah Evangeline, because you're going to be inspired, and you have a very cool way of going on video and just presenting these messages that, like you were saying earlier, I didn't really think of it that way. And it's like, that's all personal development is about. That's all personal growth, overcoming trauma and all the things. That's all it is. It's just getting you to think in a different way about the same situation.
Yeah. And discernment is so hard, or discernment is so key in that, because even when I give advice, even when I give that different perspective, I don't want someone just to consume it and take it on as their truth. I want them to go back and reflect on it.
Right.
Because, that's what we are programmed to do as well, is just accept everything as truth. And so we have all of these messages coming to us repeatedly on the daily, like they're just flowing in music, in strangers that walk by us, in billboards, like they're all over the place. And now we scroll over social media and want the instant gratification. So discernment is a huge part of this, where like, go reflect on it and observe over consume, and then go, okay, that person thinks like that. That's awesome. And we just love to get into arguments. We love to prove each other right or wrong. And that's not what this journey is about either. It's going, okay, that person's different from me. They think differently. And every single conversation, every single relationship and connection, whether it's someone that we know and we talk to on a daily basis, or someone even just like you, we're both a student and a teacher. And we get to learn and we get to teach at the same time.
Yes.
And so that's also the beautiful part, is I've had to redefine the standards of what that even looks like. And so that's what I encourage people to do. Redefine the standards and discernment.
Well, and be respectful that other people are going to think differently than you and believe differently than you. And look at that as an opportunity. Like, I get excited when I meet someone who disagrees with me. Now, sometimes they couch it in hateful language and it's not so pretty, but I always say, okay, number one, what's wrong in their life that they feel like they need to lash out at me? in those words, but then I always go, okay, that's an interesting perspective. Tell me more. When you get inquisitive about someone, about what they believe, they open up and they kind of go, oh, somebody wants to know. But then there needs to be this reciprocation that they care about and want to hear like your perspective as well. And I've had many of these kinds of conversations in real time and like comments on my posts that I do, Sarah, where someone comes at me hard thinking, oh, you're wrong. And then at the end, they kind of go, oh, wow, I had never looked at it in that way. How much better would the world be if we lived life like that in the day to day?
It'd be so different. And I think we so much hide behind a screen sometimes, because I get those messages too. And sometimes it's even in a story that I've posted it, and then they just come at me in the DM, and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't understand it. There's not even, I'm getting to a point where I'm like, there's not even a point to even respond, because there's no open dialogue.
Right.
There's no asking questions to learn. It's just, this is my perspective. I think you're wrong. Boom. And you know what's interesting? It doesn't come from the people I coach. It doesn't come from that kind of community. It comes from friends or my past life. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this showing me? As well as it can get me stressed. But then I go, oh, wait a second. If we were talking in person, A, I don't think we would be talking to each other this way. And B, I'd be walking away. I wouldn't be letting someone treat me like that.
No.
We hide behind a screen in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
And part of this journey for me was getting off social media for a whole year. Just deleted my accounts. I just wanted to look up. I wanted to be in touch with my neighbors and have real conversation. And I went back on social media with a completely different perspective, especially for women. We compare ourselves, we compare lifestyles, and every single post is a glimpse. It's a second, it's a millisecond. And so I have one agenda when I go on social media, and it's to help people grow. It's to coach and build that community. And then I'm very conscious about who I follow. So I encourage people to do that, as well as just think about, if you were talking to that person face to face, how would you be interacting with them?
Yes. Yeah, we've lost the humanity of socializing with one another. And yeah, I'm 6'3" and a big boy. Not many people would say the things to me in my face like they do online. But come at me, bruh. But no, there's a lot of hurt out there. And you mentioned earlier about trauma. Are you willing to share what you went through?
Sure. I mean, that's the beautiful part too, is that you get to share your story. I held it in for 25 years and well, I guess 20 years. But just sexual abuse, and I don't want to say religious trauma, because I even look back on that and there were such good people, right? We can look back on our lives, even through the worst scenarios. I look at the leaders that were good, that had good intentions.
Did you go keto and thought you had to give up wine? Well, let me introduce you to Dry Farm Wines. It is the world's first sugar-free alcohol that is lower than your typical wines, organic, made at local farms that do it the right way. Most of the wines that you buy are from 3 really big companies, loaded with additives and preservatives, so many dozens of those kinds of things. You don't want all that junk in your wine. So go to dryfarmwines.com/Jimmy and they will ship you these wines. And just because you listen to this podcast, Dry Farm Wines is going to give you a bottle in your first order for just 1 cent. Go to dryfarmwines.com/Jimmy and you will get your bottle of wine for just 1 singular penny. Go check them out. Dry Farm Wines, you guys. It's wine o'clock somewhere. Let's go get some wine. It's kind of religious gaslighting. There's a lot of things about, and I don't want to diss on Christianity or other forms of religion, but they don't always serve us well with the messages. Oh, well, just give it to God and he'll cover it, and just let go. And, oh, that was in the past, Sarah, let go of that. What happened to you? And it's like, that is not looking at you as a human being and caring about you. And
Mhm.
so that's trauma too.
Yes. And so, age 4 and 5, I was sexually abused by someone outside of the church. And then I grew up with the message, sex is a sin. Uh,
Yes.
Go to hell if you have sex. So then what was happening was, well, then I can't ask for help if I've been sexually abused. So I just kept it in. And the thing is that we see God, we see love, we see the world through the lens of our trauma, through the lens of our shame. And so, you know, it was like I was seeing a distorted view of even God. And so I actually went away to become a pastor as well. And that's where I had my spiritual awakening. And so I may have left the church building, but I brought God with me. But I've had people reach out to me being like really concerned about my faith. But I'm like, if you want to have a conversation about it, awesome. But like, you know, I see the world completely different. And I keep learning that. And it's not the way. It was like a distorted lens. So we all have trauma, every single human being. You don't have to have sexual abuse, or sometimes we're just even emotionally abused and we're
Yeah.
told, well, that's good enough as physical abuse, when, oh my goodness, emotional abuse, you don't see the bruises, you don't see the cuts, but it's in here,
Yeah.
and it flows into everything else in your life. So
Yeah, when I was a teenager, I don't know if you know my story, but when I was a teenager from 14 until 17 and a half, I had to go live with my dad, and he was highly physically abusive to me. And while that sucked, the emotional abuse lasted decades.
mhm.
And I, in my whole 20s, was always constantly looking over my shoulder, thinking he was coming to kill me. I literally was that scared for my life because of the emotional abuse. He also kind of ruined me in relationships because he's like, well, you're just gay. No girl's ever going to want you. You're undesirable. You're stupid. And I was an honor roll student. I didn't smoke or chew or go with girls who do. I didn't do any of those things that, you know, would make you a bad kid. I was, for all intents and purposes, a really good kid, but he so distorted that for me and made me feel emotionally um, less than, I guess is the way to put it. And when you feel less than, you don't want to achieve anything. You don't want to strive for anything because you're less than. Well, no girl's going
Yeah,
to ever want you, so why bother? And those kind of messages, they stick, and it's hard to unravel the pain that that causes. But it can be done. It may take a long time, but it can be done.
it can be done, and there's no overnight fix. There's no, magic pill. It does take time. And so we're unlearning. I started this journey, at 25. Some people start this journey much later in life. And so it's generations of things, of imprints that you're uncoding. And so it's so important that you be patient with yourself, that you go at your own pace. You're not against
Yeah.
anyone. You're going at your own pace. And so it's one step at a time. I think the biggest step is asking for help. I
Well,
remember,
can I
go
just
ahead.
say, I think a lot of people don't realize they need help. I lived over 4 decades of life before I realized what was going on.
Mm,
And I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know. I just thought, okay, well, this is just the way the world is for Jimmy. And so I just resigned it. Well, here's more evidence that the world's against me. And like I would have all of these thought processes of what's wrong with me, never, huh, did I go through something that I need to work through? That never came on my radar screen until, say, 3 years ago. And 3 years
wow.
ago, I started really digging deeply into it in my late 40s and kind of going, what have I done with my life? Holy crap, I have carried this heavy burden of so much trauma, so much unfulfilledness, just made a word up, and so many things that I wanted to do in life that I just felt like I couldn't get past here. I want to go here, but I couldn't get past here. And
Mm,
then when I started doing the work on myself and actually hired a therapist and actually started speaking out and really kind of digging into what I believe and why I believe it, it changed everything. But I didn't know until I knew.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. You said beliefs, value system. People need to get really clear on what their value system is. And it's
Yes.
allowed to change, you grow. And I remember I was like hitting that point too of like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I had no sense of direction. All I knew is I can't stay here. This is not the mold for me. I'm trying to be smaller. I'm trying to fit a square into a circle and it doesn't work. And so I remember going to a life coach that was also a pastor, and I just sat down and I just said, I was at a breaking point. So I just had to share with her and go, I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life, but I know it's not this. And I was expecting her to condemn me. I was expecting her to shame me because I had shamed myself for so long because of these messages. And so she just looked at me with a huge smile on her face and she said, well, Sarah, what do you want your life to look like? And I was like, the gates opened. It was like, what? Like, why does it feel like no one has given, I haven't given myself permission to ask that, but I feel like I've never asked that. Like, it's always, Sarah, you're good at this, do this. Sarah, you need to do this because that's what's acceptable. You're only good at this. And that's the messages I took in, and that's what I believed about myself. And so I built this belief system about myself that was not my truth. It was not the future I wanted to create, and I didn't know I was able to create that future. I have people that message me all the time going, is it a sin to love myself? And that just breaks my heart because God is love. If you believe in a higher power, the divine, like, amazing, whatever you want to use, whatever religion you come from. But where I learned to love is also where I learned to judge, and the judgment came louder than the love. And we unconditional love is what's going to save the world, but we have so many conditions we put on others, and we project on, we mirror each other. And so when I get triggered, and when people get triggered, they go, oh my gosh, I'm getting triggered. But it's like, no. Triggers are an opportunity. It's going, okay,
Yes.
more work for me to do on myself, more for me to explore about myself. Like this, the discovery of self never ends. And we have these words, trigger, shame, and they have such sometimes bad and negative and toxic meanings. But it's like, no, a trigger is good, but we just don't know how to deal with them. We don't know how to embrace them. So, I mean, it's a journey. It's not all at once because there's so many different things to unpack, but that was definitely something I wanted to add.
Well, let's get into the subject of shame because a lot of people carry that around for a variety of reasons. Your sexual abuse could be something you could have shame over. I've got a lot of things that I could say I have shame over in my life. What is shame?
All right, I love this. Okay, so shame, let's break it down. Shame is usually one of three things, and that is the feelings or the thoughts of I'm not good enough, I'm bad, or I'm going to be alone for thinking this way. And so we can all, every single one of us can reflect back on our life, and I call it the shame script. And it might not be just, oh, I'm bad, or I'm not good enough. There's a story attached to it. Someone or something told you weren't good enough, or someone or something told you were bad or wrong. And then that leads to core fears. We all have core fears. And something that a new definition for fear for me is face everything and rise. And so
Like that.
we have to face those fears. We have to face the shame so we can meet it, so we can understand it, and then we can learn to overcome it. We never fully get rid of shame or fear in this life, but I want people to be empowered to take their control back, to take their power back, dictating their worth. And so a core fear for me that I even still have to be mindful of is, oh, I'm getting it wrong. Like when someone else doesn't approve of me, oh, I've done it wrong. And it's like, no, I'm me. I'm me. I'm just not maybe doing it right to someone else's standards.
Yes.
And I catch myself because then it spirals into this shame worm. And so we do it all the time. We do it in the subconscious. And so it's that work of self-awareness. And first I encourage people to go, okay, what is the shame script I'm holding about myself? Is there a story that's dictating to me that I'm not good enough? Is there a story that says I'm bad for being this way. And it doesn't just show up when we're holding that shame. It doesn't just show up in one relationship or at the workplace. It shows up in almost every aspect of our life, including when we
Yes.
look at ourselves in the mirror. Doesn't matter if we're a man or a woman. So, yeah.
Sh- Shame can originate in other people, and it usually does. In my case, it was my dad saying all
Mm-hmm.
those ugly things to me and putting those thoughts in my head. But then shame proliferates right here.
Yeah,
Because,
exactly.
and I have one of those minds, Sarah, that like I remember things really vividly, and so I can still vividly remember the abuse, but I remember him speaking angrily at me these thoughts, and so I can see those in my mind's eye, and those just kind of go. Now I've been able to quiet them a lot in the past few years, and so I'm thankful for that. But for many years, those things would pop up, especially situationally, where there was
Mm-hmm.
something that society say, "Oh, you did wrong there," and it wasn't necessarily that it was wrong. It was just I did it my way, and they wanted me to do it another way, and so it came across, and so I would have shame. But well, I didn't do it the right way, but according to the standards of other people, and so this is why living authentically in who you are is the biggest shame buster there is. Because if you live who you are, what do you have to be ashamed of at that point?
Exactly. And that's the thing is too, is that authenticity. The thing is that there's not just one form of me. I may have one name, but there's many different forms of me. And that's why expression is so beautiful. Women, especially, we are an art piece, and we are taught at a very young age. I also worked in a school system where I saw these kids. We compare ourselves at such a young age. Our hair isn't right, our body isn't thin enough, and we consume these messages about the outside appearance. And oh my goodness, I'm blanking kind of on your last question because I get so passionate about this. But what can you repeat that question?
Yeah, so I mean,
Oh, sorry.
basically,
I get it now. Sorry, you didn't ask a question. Authenticity. So it's reminding people that you have more than one form to you. You're going to show up differently to your family than you do to your partner. You're going to show up differently to work than you do to your family. But the big key thing is how do you want to show up? You might have the perfect job. You might have the amazing spouse. You might have really good things going for you, but then people get miserable. People go, well, what's the point? It's just mundane. And it's like, okay, shift your perspective. Like, how do you want to show up? Are you showing up just to please others? Are you showing up just so that you can have that validation from a social structure? Or are you going, okay, like, this is what I bring and this is what I can learn. It's just, again, the mindset shifts and knowing that there's more than one part of you. There's not one way to do life. There's not just one way you have to show up. It's learning. That's the key of learning about who you are and loving who you are as well.
and there's
Yeah.
no shame in any.
No, no. And like the thing is too, is we can sometimes get stuck because we're then, well, like, well, who am I supposed to be? Like, what am I supposed to do? And it's like, well, you gotta take the risk and step out, or else you're not gonna know. I didn't even know what my favorite color was because I was so interpreting what other people wanted from me. I had to even ask myself, like, what is my actual favorite color?
Yeah.
Because I was so good. I was so good at going, okay, well, that person will probably want me to like this. And you do it even,
Mhm.
again, subconsciously. So
Yes.
it's asking those even basic questions.
Man, when you go deep like that, change has to happen. And big alterations in how you believe about things and what you think about the shame that you feel. And you talk a lot in your work about healing from shame. Let's talk about how you did that, and maybe I'll interject some of the things that I've learned along the way as well.
Yeah, I would love to learn what you learned as well. And um, I started working with a life coach and a therapist, and I was so numb. I wasn't even aware that it was shame. Like when you say shame, people are like, okay, shame, but I have to explain to people what it is, and then they go, oh my gosh, that's
Oh,
shame. Shame. But for me, because of the trauma, because of all the things, I was just going through life. I was just going through the motions. I remember going, is this all life is? Because
Yeah.
this is not what I want to be doing for the rest of my life, is feeling this way. And so I had a lot of suppressed emotions, suppressed memories. And so the first thing I remember doing is bringing those back into light. And at 25 years old, I was walking through memories that I had forgotten with a good therapist, with a good life coach to have support. And it was like
Yes.
for the first time I could feel them. For the first time, I could express that anger and rage at these people that hurt me.
Yes.
And because anger is a good emotion, but I had a very unhealthy view of anger. And it's then the stories underneath the anger that need to come forth to the surface. And so I did that. I just really had to spend some time learning to love myself. And then the biggest thing was me not having a safety plan, because for my entire life, I just had to have plan A, plan B, plan C based on what other people wanted me. And I was
Yes.
like, actually going to start to live by faith, because up until that point, I had preached, I had talked the good talk, I'd done everything they told me to do, memorized scripture. And I was like, I don't even know what faith is, because I have not even known how to step into the unknown. I've not taken that risk. And so I even use the illustration of I'm on the mountaintop and I'm going to step off that edge. I'm not going to look behind me where it's safe, where I'm comfortable. I'm going to step off that edge and I'm not going to hit the ground. I'm going to soar. And I even had a vision of a bird. I had a vision of a bird and going, I want to be that bird soaring. I don't want to be stuck where I am. And then the person who was in school with me, she leaned over to me and she was like, Sarah, I have something to tell you. And I was annoyed with her because I was like, I'm in this vision statement. Like I'm getting clarity. And in that moment, she literally said to me, she was like, Sarah, somebody wants me to tell you that you have wings you haven't soared yet. Like, you're not supposed to be here. Like, and that's why we need each other. There's a beautiful aspect that we do need each other. Like, this was this person that I love her so much because she didn't hesitate. She didn't go, oh, what is someone going to think about me? And she got in trouble for it a lot. But like, she didn't hesitate. She was like, Sarah, like, this is what's going through my head. And I'm like, fuck, like I'm having this vision in my head right now. So I had to also just step out into the unknown. I moved to the place I live now in Hamilton, Ontario, had no job. I had an apartment with my brother, had not seen the apartment. I was just like, I'm going head first. And I don't know what's going to be there. I don't know what's going to happen, but I want to live in this surrender experiment where,
Yes.
and it's been now 4 years. And I'm just amazed. Like, my life has not turned out the way I planned. I've gone through pain. I almost married someone and that didn't go through. And that was a whole nother set of me having the opportunity to learn to love myself. And so it's not like it's pain-free. It's not like everything's easy. It's just, again, seeing it through that different lens and allowing myself to be me, allowing myself to, for others to be themselves. And just, I say this too, like, it was like I saw the world through a broken black and white lens. And it's like I shattered all of that. And it's a beautiful, colorful world where there's music, where there's art, where there's a place to belong. And it just looks completely different. And I would love to do my doctorate in traumatology just so that I can help others just even more. Because again, we see everything through that lens of shame and trauma. And once you start breaking through that, it's like, oh my goodness, the reality I've been presented isn't my reality anymore.
Yes.
So
And the patterns that you pick up on, Sarah, to cover that pain of the shame and the trauma and the unresolvedness in your life, it's bad. And I can go back to 2019 in my own story. I was doing 7 days a week of podcasts. I was writing books, one a year for 7 years in a row. I was working myself to the bone. And I did not realize at the time until my best friend Brittany pointed it out in 2019. You work a lot because you have trauma that you haven't resolved. And I'm sorry, what? And she said,
yeah,
yeah, you have all the telltale signs. It's great what you've done. And look, I made a crap load of books in 7 years. And so I can be very proud of the work I did, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a trauma response. It doesn't mean I wasn't running away from the things I needed to face. And I did something pretty unprecedented. pretty close to what you did for a year with social media. I went away on a 6-month sabbatical in September of 2019, where I totally just, everything was off. I turned off, I deleted every social media app. I didn't get online. I had to be, for the first time in,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, my adult life. I just had to be. And when that
Yeah.
happened, Sarah, my life radically changed, because once all of the noise of what I get to do, which I love every bit of what I get to do now, but once the noise of all that workaholicism calmed down and it was just me and my life, I went, I don't like this life. There is
Yeah.
something bad wrong. I don't like who I am because it's not me. And it was
Mm-hmm.
this revelation. And so 6 months of grueling internal work,
Yeah.
and the way that I helped to heal from some of the shame was when I came back. I remember my very first, it was right here on camera, my very first foray back onto social media after being gone for 6 months. I came on and I was just like spitting it. I was just like, everything truth, everything. And some people immediately went, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not the Jimmy we know. I'm like, no, that one's dead, because that was never
Yeah.
Jimmy. This
Yeah.
is Jimmy now. And I might drop a curse word every now and then. I might say things, a turn of phrase that might be different than you've heard before, but you can bet your bottom dollar who I am now is who I am. And
Yeah.
that was so freeing. And I have flown
Mhm.
high in that for the last 2 years since I've been back, and I don't regret a bit of it, because I've been able to step into who I am even more every single day. A lot of people ask me, Jimmy, how do you get such good deep sleep? Well, there's a lot of things that I do, but one of the newest things that I recently added is this upgraded magnesium from a company called Upgraded Formulas. Go to their website, upgradedformulas.com, and you can learn all about this nano technology that they use for this particular mineral of magnesium. Again, it's called Upgraded Magnesium, and it's got all the different forms of magnesium in it, using the nanotechnology so it gets absorbed a lot better. Guys, I have seen my deep sleep improve by as much as 30 to 40% simply by adding in this product, along with sunshine exposure, darkness in the room, cooler temperature, all of the things that I always have done. So again, upgradedformulas.com is the website. Go check them out.
That exactly. That's what it is. And there's many versions of ourselves that have to die. Like you said that so well. What I learned is that the girl, the inner child in me that came back, like I realized, but I never lost her. Like I never lost her. She was there, but there was all of these things in front of her. There was all these things she had consumed that didn't belong to her. And so it's like a reclaiming myself.
See,
And
I got you making up words now.
yeah, I make up words all the time. Like it's like my brain says one thing and it comes out and I'm just like, okay, there it is. Yeah, but yeah, it's this beautiful journey where I mean, and it's so true. If we allow our identity to be based on being busy, trauma response.
Yeah,
Busyness is a trauma response. And so when people then retire or they lose their job or they're become an empty nester, it's like, oh my gosh, I have to deal with my shit now. And so like it's the things that we find our identity when they're gone. They're right beginning of COVID, so many people lost their job, which is horrible because we do have bills to pay, we do have all the things, but at the same time, if we're making our identity in those things, then guess what, those things are all temporary, but your
yeah,
soul, that's, no one can take that away from you, no one. And so that's why it's so key to do that work, so that our purpose, it's who we are. It's not what we do, it's not what we have, but it flows into that. And so if we're doing the opposite, where okay, we have the car, we have the good job, we have that really awesome partner, and then we make that our purpose, it's got to be the purpose first inside of us, and then it flows into everything else. It shifts your whole perspective.
yes. So
Yeah.
one more topic I want to talk with you about before we get out of here, and it's relationships, specifically love relationships. I know are you engaged right now, right?
I'm not engaged right now. I was, it feels like years ago, but it was just like 2 years ago. It feels so long ago because that made me shift into doing so much more work for myself. But I am dating someone who is definitely a life partner, but I had to do work as well with relationships, let me tell you.
Right. Well, that's what I wanted to get into because I went through a pretty grueling divorce, and it was not pretty. It was not fun. Never is. But like in the midst of that, I'm sitting here going, I got to go find love, and I would like do all these things to try to find. And I finally got to the point, Sarah, where I was like, no, no, Jimmy, love
Yeah.
you, and I'm at that point, and I'm at such peace about it that I know that the world, God, whoever, whatever, will figure that out for me. But I'm not in the pursuit of having to find someone. I know who I am. I know my value. I know what I bring to the table. And at the end of the day, love myself. And through
Yeah.
that will attract love back.
Yeah.
And everybody is always looking for love in all the wrong places, as the song goes. And so,
And that's so true because when you heal your relationship with self, when you learn to love yourself unconditionally, you are going to attract in someone completely different because you know your worth. You know that you deserve more than, like, when I look back at how I let some of my boyfriends treat me in the past. It's like, whoa. And I had such mixed messaging about masculine and feminine energy. We live in this world where we're like, I'm a feminist, but I think at the same time, when we raise up as women, we sometimes push down men. Not all of us. I don't want to make a generalization, but I was definitely demasculating men, not aware of it, and so I had to relearn that I have this feminine energy about me, and when I'm living in trauma, when I was living in all of that shame, I let my masculine energy, which is I don't want to confuse people, but it's the part of me that wants that control, and it was an unhealthy version of masculinity. It was, I have to be in control. I have to have everything to work out. And like, no one can come at me. And I would take control in relationships. I would not let the man lead. And like, there's different perspectives on that as well. I think it is an equal partnership, but needless to say, so I don't get too confusing here, my complete outlook on relationships changed because of my view of self. And
yes.
so this partner that I have now, we're best friends. And I just see how we appreciate each other for who we are. And it's unconditional. And we have communication. We can communicate with each other without even talking. And, even what I was told sex would be like it's completely different. It's just reality that we're told it has to be this way. Like, him and I will say, well, we're going to build a life that other people are like, well, no, you can't do that. You can't do it. And it's like, well, why? We want to do it this way. Like, one of my first dates with him, he's like, what kind of house do you want one day? He's like, no limitations. And so just closed my eyes, envisioned a house, and he's like, okay, we're going to do it. And like, it's not something that has been done yet. And so, but him and I both have done the work to love ourselves. His story is his own, but we both will say we were not ready for each other until we learned to love ourselves first.
Yes.
If we had met a year ago, if we had met 2 years ago, I don't even know if we would have been attracted to each other, just because we had so much of that work to do. And so if partners can do that together, if they're married, amazing. But if you're single, like, stop chasing love. Start loving yourself, and then look who's running beside you. Look who's right there doing the work with themselves too.
Well, and then you're not codependent on someone else for your happiness. You're happy within. Like, I can honestly say now, on the other side of that horrendous experience with the divorce, I'm happier than I've ever been in my whole life, because I pretty much went from trauma with my dad, college, married, divorce, and now here. And this is the first time in my life since I was a little kid that I truly am happy and truly am in a place good up here. I know who I am. I feel like I do good in the world. Like there's nothing that can replace that.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So good.
Well, Sarah, you have been wonderful today. Guys, go follow her, the Sarah Evangeline, and it's Sarah and then Evangeline. And you've got a nice little smart bio there. Do you offer any coaching or courses for people or anything you want to pimp here at the end?
Yes, I do offer coaching. I have a one-to-one package. People can work with me for 4 months or 6 months. Or I also have a power hour. Yeah, they can just look it up there. DM me. I want to make sure it works best for you. Ask me questions. I am all about self-growth and healing. So that's what my package does, is we work through that, completely custom to their own needs. And then I have a program coming out soon in the next month or two, where we'll be walking through people. If they want the accountability and the community aspect, there will be that option coming soon as well. We'll be walking through shame, walking through reclaiming who you are and living that out. And all the elements that we've really talked about here, we're going into that in depth. So it's like I've just spurted out and had a great conversation with you on what I'm working with behind the scenes. So this has been so amazing, so life-giving. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And I am so encouraged by you and encourage you in your journey to keep moving forward.
Thank you, Sarah. Really appreciate you, girl. And yeah, you're getting lots of nice comments. Wonderful, awesome topic. This was great. Made a lot of sense. Thank you guys for watching. And Sarah, thank you. You were amazing. I knew you would be. It's funny how, like, when you see people online, you can kind of get a vibe for people. And I immediately got the vibe with you. This is somebody who's legit. They're not just playing some guru online. You are who you are. So thank you for demonstrating that. And hopefully I came across that way to you as well. So
yes.
Are you tired of playing the mask game? Me too. That's why I wanted to tell you about the Unmask. This is a breathable, completely breathable. It covers, you can't even see that it's breathable, but it's breathable. Whether you're going on a plane, having to go into a store and wearing this thing, playthemaskgame.com is how you can get this mask. They come in all kinds of colors and everything. In fact, right there, you can see right through it what it is, but when you're wearing it, it does not look like it's anything different, but it's breathable, baby. Playthemaskgame.com.
Have you experienced the dreaded keto flu? Did you know that most of these symptoms are actually due to your body dumping excess electrolytes? This is where Element comes in. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means lots of salt with no sugar. Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited to folks following a keto, low-carb, or paleo diet. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio, 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, with none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. Everyone needs electrolytes, especially those on low-carb diets, or if you practice intermittent or extended fasting, if you're physically active, or sweat a lot. Add Element today and see how much better you feel and perform. Use the URL drinklmnt.com/Jimmy.